I want to give a quick shout out to my patrons. Thank you so much for your support.
Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to another Bibliotherapy Sunday. Today's episode is dedicated to single parents. So we've got Mother's Day, and we've got Father's Day, and I think there's even a Grandparents' Day here in the US, but we don't have a single parent day, a day to celebrate single parents that have to do it all on their own. They have to be both mother and father to kids. And so today I thought would be a good time to dedicate our episode to single parents, since we just had Mother's Day and we've got Father's Day coming up next month. Why not give a shout out to those single parents out there who have to do it all? So these recommendations come from the novel Cure, and I will put that in the description below. It's a great resource. If you want recommendations, they've got recommendations for like just about everything. Do keep in mind that their recommendations are all fiction, and they are a little bit dated because this book came out, I think, in the 2010s, I want to say. So there's not new fiction on there, and there's a lot of classics. But really, really great recommendations, and their explanations, especially for some of these recommendations, are possibly better than the books themselves, at least better than, say, the Goodreads description of the book that you'll get. So we've got a couple different recommendations here from the novel Cure for being a single parent. First up is The Sound of One Hand Clapping by Richard Flanagan, and what a fantastic title. That title evokes so much just by listening to it. I love it. This is an Australian historical fiction, Australian best-selling novel. It was 1954. Bohan Bulow's wife walked off into a blizzard and never to return, leaving him to care for his 3-year-old daughter while also battling alcoholism. 35 years later, the daughter returns to a father haunted by memories of the European War and other more recent horrors. The Sound of One Hand Clapping is about the barbarianism of an old world left behind, about the harshness of a new country, and the destiny of these in a land beyond hope who seek to redeem themselves through love. That book is definitely going on my TBR. It sounds like a deep, painful, meaningful book to read. I am a big fan of historical fiction, and I definitely feel like I have to read that book. A lot of these books on these lists I haven't read yet, but I am hoping to read them all someday and circle back once I do read them, if I've already did videos about them, like this video, and to give my further thoughts on the books themselves and also the recommendations that the novel Cure gives. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that these descriptions that I'm reading off for these books are paraphrased from Goodreads. So I took bits and parts from Goodreads that I thought weren't spoiler filled and put them in here. So in The Sound of One Hand Clapping, obviously our single parent is the father. We've got Legend of a Suicide by David Vann. This is a collection of short stories, and it follows the journey of a boy through his life to manhood, following his father from divorce to remarriage to infidelity and then to suicide, and takes place in Alaska, where the author's father committed suicide himself. So again, another deep, meaningful book. Short stories, so maybe a little bit easier to process and digest little at a time if you're looking for meaningful short story collection. Next up we have How I Live Now by Meg Rosoff. Now this one is a YA dystopian novel. We've got 15-year-old Daisy is sent from Manhattan to England to visit her aunt and cousins she's never met. 3 boys near her age and their little sister. Her aunt goes away on business soon after Daisy arrives, which sounds a little suspicious to me. And the next day, bombs go off as London is attacked and occupied by an unnamed enemy. As power fails and systems fail, the farm becomes more isolated. Despite the war, it's a kind of Eden. No adults and no rules. So in this one, we've got, I guess the aunt is the single parent, and when she goes away, the kids have no adults left, so they're there to take care of themselves, I guess. It sounds interesting, even though it might stretch the single parent theme that we have going on. The Last Samurai by Helen DeWitt, which is not the Tom Cruise movie, by the way. The Last Samurai centers on the relationship between Sibylla, a single mother of precocious and rigorous intelligence, and her son who, owing to his mother's singular attitude to education, develops into a prodigy of learning. Which, just for example, the first example the description gives, at age 4, he is able to read the Odyssey in the original Greek, which, like, adults can't do that today unless they've studied Greek. So that's insane for a 4-year-old to be able to do that. He soon sets out on a journey of learning and in seek of his father. The Last Samurai is about the pleasure of ideas, the rich varieties of human thought, and the possibilities that life offers us, and ultimately the balance between the structures we make of the world and the chaos that it proffers in return. That one sounded really, really interesting to me. Definitely adding that to my list. And then our last 2 recommendations are classics. One I've read and one I haven't read. So let's start with the one I haven't read before. Silas Marner by George Eliot. If you've been watching my videos, you know I'm reading Middlemarch by George Eliot right now. So I can't wait to get to Silas Marner, which is, I'm told, much shorter than Middlemarch and kind of totally different. A gentle linen weaver named Silas Marner is wrongly accused of theft. His best friend actually did it. He exiles himself to a rustic village of Ravioli, becomes a lonely recluse. Ultimately, Marner finds spiritual rebirth through his unselfish love of an abandoned child who mysteriously appears one day in his isolated cottage. That makes me want to read this even more, and I know I've heard Stephanie and Tiffany both rave about Silas Marner, so I can't wait to get to that one. And then last but definitely not least is a book, a classic that I have read countless times. I can't even tell you how many times I've read it. It's one of my favorite classics and one that I talk about just about every year. That's To Kill a Mockingbird, of course, by Harper Lee. Another classic. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know what To Kill a Mockingbird is about, a black man is charged with the rape of a white girl. Through the young eyes of Scout and Jem Finch, Harper Lee explores with exuberant humor the irrationality of adult attitudes toward race and class in the Deep South of the 1930s. I think I want to say Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, somewhere around there. Atticus Finch, a single father and the only lawyer willing to defend this man, must teach his kids what is right and wrong despite what society tells them. And Atticus Finch, I'm going to talk about him more in the Father's Day video that I'm going to do, which will be our next Bibliotherapy Sunday video. He is one of my favorite characters in literature and certainly one of my favorite fathers in literature. He is such an amazing character, and To Kill a Mockingbird was an instant classic, and I think like the next year or 2 years maybe after the novel was released, they had already adapted it into a film, a black and white film with Gregory Peck playing Atticus Finch, and in a world full of remakes and redos, they have never remade To Kill a Mockingbird film. It was just that good. They've redone just about everything there is to redo, but still the only film adaptation of To Kill a Mockingbird is that one from I think 1963, still in black and white. I think they've revisioned it in color or something. Yeah, I don't know the technical terms, but still that original film with Gregory Peck as Atticus Finch, and he plays that role so well, so beautiful. I'll talk about Atticus Finch a little bit more in our next video. Speaking of our next video, that's all I have for today's video on single parents. Join us next time for another Bibliotherapy Sunday edition dedicated to all the fathers out there for Father's Day. Let me know in the comments below, who are your favorite single parents in literature, and why do you love them so much? Why are they so great? As always, my Patreon and my Discord information will be in the description below. Keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back. Bye.